Hey everyone, it's BlueLizardJello, and welcome to our new and yet somehow old podcast, Forgot to Save. I'm here with a very good friend of mine, Stone, and you may recognize him from, well, the Discord or as a moderator in the streams, or just being in the community now for years, but he's someone that I've known personally for a number of years now, and we first launched Forgot to Save back in 2017.
Yeah, 15, 16, 17, that range somewhere.
Yeah. And we had a decent run of episodes, and I enjoyed them. I think you did as well.
Oh, hated them.
Okay. Why are we back?
Contractually, we didn't finish the number of episodes we had to. In the
Gotcha.
beginning.
We couldn't hit syndication, is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
So I need that check.
That totally makes sense. But we had this idea years ago, and we're going to go into the idea and the format behind it in just a moment. But we had this idea, and, just real life gets in the way. Cross-country moves galore, at least on my part, much less so on yours. But a few people have actually been requesting it, and we've bounced this idea back and forth a few times. And here we are.
Right.
And that's
Excited to be back.
Yeah.
And we're shaking up the formula a little bit from what we had before. Not that anyone remembered. The two people that remember are going to be kind of excited. And I say kind of, that's the ceiling, right?
at most, on a good day, they will be kind of, we might get a little bit of, out of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to talk just a little bit about what it was and maybe what it's kind of evolved into, sort of, the whole idea Forgot to Save was born out of this compulsion, maybe that's the right word, it probably isn't, to play kind of as many games as we can. We're both lifelong game players. I hate the term gamer, so I'll just use game players. And between us especially, we do have quite the diverse background of gaming experiences and preferences. We're going to really go into that a little bit later on, but there's always these huge industry-shaping, genre-defining games that come and go, and we may not get a chance to get to all of them. I know I haven't. And so we kind of had this idea of, what if we pitched some games to each other that at least one of us hasn't played? We go back and play them, whether they're recent or, 20 years old, and then we just revisit them today to see, how are they holding up? Do they actually impact us in any meaningful way? Do we have anything interesting to say is really what I'm talking about.
Sure, I would stay away from phrasing it like that, because then nobody's going to listen, because obviously we have nothing interesting to say. But the way I really see this podcast is kind of just like a book club for like games we should have played a long time ago. Like, everyone has a backlog, and I think getting through it as a group is the easiest way to try to experience something new. Like you said, we've been playing for a long time. There's tons of games that we wish we would have gotten. Maybe the window has passed. Maybe it didn't look interesting to you, or you got recommended from a friend maybe one time and forgot. It's just kind of, as a community, going through and getting rid of that backlog.
Yeah, you get into a conversation, or maybe you see a gaming event that takes place and a game comes up and you go, oh yeah, I totally forgot that even came out.
Sure.
It happens all the time, and especially when you kind of get yourself pigeonholed into playing certain types of games, you really do miss out a lot on what the industry has to offer. Now, I feel like you are a bit more eclectic than I am when it comes to games. Do you think that that's a fair description?
I think maybe you think that because I like anime and you don't.
Is that not what eclectic means?
It has a tendency to have some weirder, more indie titles and subject matter and style of gaming that maybe you wouldn't otherwise touch.
So I'm curious, and we didn't really plan this, so this is going to be an off-the-cuff question. Why do you think that there are games in this category of again, industry-shaping, genre-defining, or just impactful games? Why do you think there are so many games that you never got around to?
I think age has something to do with it. I just feel that I missed out on a lot of early 3D games, which I now love to go back and play just because of my age. And then there's also, as a result of age, I think for everyone, what consoles did you grow up with? Like if you missed out on having a PS2, as an RPG gamer myself, it's like you missed out on everything.
Right.
If you grew up with a GameCube, you got some great stuff, but story-driven games, you were in the dark. So, yeah, I don't know. Why did you miss out on games?
That's actually really interesting. And I'll go into mine here in a second, but I never really just thought about simple availability.
Yeah.
That's huge. So when I grew up as a wee child in New England, we had primarily Nintendo consoles. We had an NES. We skipped the SNES, but my cousins had it, so I got a chance to play that quite a bit. Then we got into the N64, but it wasn't until my older brother got a PlayStation sometime later that I finally broke the Nintendo mold. And then we were mostly a kind of a Sony household, if you will, for quite some time. I missed a lot of Microsoft. So I was never part of the Xbox generation. I had a 360 towards its tail end.
You missed a big generation there.
Yeah, I dabbled on Xbox One. I don't have a Series X/S. And I also kind of got away from Nintendo for quite a while. I never really, beyond the N64, I never owned another console until the Switch.
And we are also, as far as why people have this kind of backlog, we're also talking from like the American perspective where almost everything is available.
Right.
It's like Japan gets it, and then we are number 2 in availability until the Xbox, which we're spoiled for, But like, if you look at I watch a streamer who's Turkish, and he said growing up, he had to buy bootleg copies of everything.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's like we are even like have this availability in quotes issue that causes our backlog, and we're coming from a place of like profound privilege as far as video games go.
And kind of in the same realm as privilege, there's also the financial aspect. It can be extremely and prohibitively expensive to not only own every console, but to play every game, because gone, for the most part, are the days of renting a game. You used to be able to go down to Blockbuster or Nap Video. You guys never had Nap Video. That was local to us, but you pay $4 or $5 and you had it for like a weekend.
You could rent consoles too.
You could rent consoles as well.
I rented a PS2 because, I was lucky. I kind of grew up a little wealthy, and my parents were they gave me a lot of video game consoles, but we were deciding like you can only get the GameCube or the PS2. So we rented each one from Blockbuster and decided which one we wanted. But we were lucky in that aspect.
Yeah. And now,
but I will say that now it's a lot better in that. Yes, new games are like $80 now. Mm-hmm. But if you're a PC gamer, which is getting more and more accessible, if you ask me, we just came from COVID, which we were priced out entirely of entering the PC market. But now with the Steam Deck, that's coming down,
Yes.
And you have all kinds of subscription services now, like PlayStation Now and Game Pass. And Steam sales are a constant, Humble Bundle, all that kind of stuff. And my avenue that I go down, I buy a bunch of used consoles on eBay. I fix them up myself. It's just a little bit of isopropyl alcohol for the most part and reapplying thermal paste. And then you can get flash carts or an external hard drive cheaply and mod all the games onto it yourself. So yeah, now is an excellent time to get back into the video game market.
That is true. That is true. And this is going to be an interesting plug, but get out to your local library. It is a treasure trove. I am impressed with our little local library and how many games they have on offer, including PlayStation 5 and Xbox One, Series X and S. And we actually have a really nice community of libraries that are all networked together across the state. And I say across the state, it's the size of a postage stamp. It's Rhode Island. It's tiny.
Right. It's like the smallest state.
But I can put in a request for a game that my local one doesn't have, but they have over in Pawtucket. And as long as it's not being checked out, I'll have it in about 2 days, completely free of charge for 3 weeks. It's actually rather incredible, to be honest. But getting back to the question at hand, which was why didn't I get around to it? We talked about the availability, talked about some of the financials, but in recent years, or at least in the last, frankly, let's call it 10 years, being an amateur small-time content creator, I am always balancing my time between work, between family, playing games, and creating content. And those last two categories have almost become, if it was a Venn diagram, it would almost be a perfect circle.
Yeah.
The games that I play are the games that I record, and the games that I record need to be games that fit my brand.
Right.
Which is, of course, From Software, Dark Souls, Bloodborne, Souls-likes, and anything I want to play that doesn't fit into that little corner of the market often gets left behind. And I missed out on a lot because of that. And I'm really trying to do a better job at just, playing some games for myself. I'm playing through Alan Wake now again. I played it when it first came out, but I'm playing it again. I played through Mario Wonder. And it's been great to have that downtime. But it's also at the same time I'm sitting there playing and enjoying myself thinking, I should really be downstairs recording something.
That guilt.
Yep.
Yeah. That's rough.
But that has led to a huge backlog of games that I really need to get around to playing.
Right. Well, that's the point of this podcast. But we talked about the concept. But what is our schedule like? How do people follow the Forgot to Save podcast, Blue?
So before, when we were releasing these, we kind of just threw it out to the four corners of the earth. Anywhere where a podcast could be found, that's where you could find our podcast. We're thinking now, let's not diversify. Let's take all of the best financial advice that's out there and put all of our eggs into one basket and have it all on YouTube here on the BlueLizardJello channel. If something happens, if this gains a following and we need our own dedicated space, we can cross that bridge when we get to it. But currently, we're thinking that we're going to release an episode weekly on Monday mornings, time to be determined, because Stone listens to podcasts. I'll be honest, I don't tend to. I like the idea of them, but I've just never gotten into them. And from what I understand, having something to just put on while you work, through the drudgeries of a Monday morning might be helpful. So that's currently our plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yeah, every week is going to be something a little bit different. So we will be playing 2 concurrent games every month. And the way that will work is that week 1 is going to be a recommendation from Blue. He's going to create a list of games he wants to bring to the table and play. Most often, his recommendations he will probably have played, and my recommendations I will probably have played, but that's not a requirement. And it's going to be week 1 is a game he suggests. He's going to come to me with a list, and I will choose from that list. I won't know the title of the games. He will just describe them somewhat vaguely. And then that game that he decides, we will revisit later in week 3. And then the second week comes around, I will do the same for Blue. I will present him a few games he will not know the title of. He will choose, and then my game will come back week 4. So to reiterate, week 1 is Blue presenting a series of games that I will choose to play from that list. Week 2 is me presenting a series of games that Blue will choose from that list. Week 3 will be us reviewing Blue's game, having played all of it. And week 4 will be us reviewing my game, having played all of it. And that all of it has an asterisk. It's not required to finish the game, but just get in far enough to understand maybe what concepts that we wanted to convey to each other or that we missed out on the first time. Why is this game widely recommended to us and others?
Yeah, have an informed opinion.
Exactly.
So last time when we played this, what are some of the games that we got around to? I know Undertale was a big one.
We got a weird list, honestly, going back. It's hard to look at it with the context of 2023.
Sure.
You know? We played Shadow of War or Shadow of Mordor.
Shadow of Mordor.
I think, yeah, it was Shadow
War
of Mordor.
wasn't out yet.
Yes, which I love, which also makes me think that it was 2015, yeah. We played Life is Strange, which I ended up actually really loving. Undertale, which I ended up really loving. Beyond Good and Evil, which I ended up really loving.
Sensing a pattern here.
Yeah, so it's really good that I did this. You got nothing out
Stone
of it.
finds really great games. I get to be here.
Oh, actually, we played Psychonauts, which I ended up hating. So there's that.
It was an interesting one. I can't say that I loved it, but it had its merits.
Sure. Yeah, but these were things, at the time that were informing what was modern games coming out. And 2015 was a big indie boom.
Yes.
So
yes,
there were a lot of weird games coming out.
There are a lot. Now, and I will say this, and this is a spoiler alert, and Stone might be mad at me for saying this. We're actually recording this one out of order. So this is what we're considering episode 0. So this does not count as week 1. We're not actually going to talk at all about the games that are coming up. This is just an introductory. However, last week we did record episodes 1 and 2, which are weeks 1 and 2. So we have already decided upon the game from my list and the game from Stone's list. And all I'll say is I'm not even going to tell you what they are, but they are wildly different from one another.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, diametrically opposite.
And one of them is, I will allow all of you to go in the comments right now, and everybody gets 10 guesses, and I guarantee you won't even get what one of the two games is. It is a wild choice. I won't say which choice for first or second, but it is a wild choice.
It is. I'm going to be really curious to hear how many people have played that first one. The second one, most everyone. But that first game is going to be a fair small number of folks.
So let's talk about this. Was that a good transition?
Yeah.
Rate that 1 to 10.
Yeah.
Hey, let's
Segue,
talk
absolutely.
about this. That's just how I talk to people in public too.
You're like
Hey, I
my
wanna talk
5-year-old
about
at
this
dinner, trying to rapidly change the subject to not Fortnite, tabs.
Tab? What are tabs?
Tabs, totally accurate battle simulator.
Oh, okay, yes. I do know that. I've never heard it abbreviated.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, wow.
Takes too long.
So let's talk about this. That I'm gonna put that one in the books. But people are on your channel. People are here for BlueLizardJello. They know what BlueLizardJello likes, and I would imagine that a lot of the listeners are in line with your opinions or know at least what to expect from you. But I want to give people a complete picture of who both of us are,
Sure.
what both of us like, so that when we go ahead and recommend games or talk about our experiences with different games, they can kind of look at it at the perspective of, oh, I skew more toward a blue, or I skew more toward a stone, or I know that I fall in the middle of them, or I know I fall completely outside of them. And I think a good way to do that is to talk about a few things from each of us, namely, in no particular order, what our maybe top 5 games are, what our top 3 favorite genres are, and we have kind of a fun little interactive thing we can do with the audience, which we will discuss after those things. How does that sound?
I like it.
Great. Would you like to go first, the man of the hour?
Sure.
That people care about BlueLizardJello.
So first off, and this is just me being honest and transparent, I get asked questions like this a lot. Anytime I stream or in the Discord or even just on the videos that I produce, people want to know, hey, Blue, what is your favorite? Insert whatever it is here. And I will answer them. But I will tell you right now, I don't have a list of my favorite anything ever handy. Which means anytime I answer this question, I am somewhat going off the cuff. And that includes right now. Okay? So I'm gonna think about it. But I'm not reading from a list. I don't have this scripted. And I don't also just want to list 5 FromSoft games, even though that's probably fairly accurate. FromSoft action RPGs are definitely, for me, some of the pinnacle experiences that I've had while playing games. But I will say that Dark Souls 1, the original, the OG, is easily in my top 5. I don't know that it is in the top slot. In fact, I'm fairly certain that it's not. But that introduced me into this very challenging action RPG world where death has very real consequences to the player. It encourages the player to think about each mistake that they've made, to really analyze each misstep, and to come at it in a different way, and to really strategize through the different situations and the boss fights, try new things until something works and something sticks for you. So that easily cements itself up there. Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
Oh, good one.
My absolute favorite Zelda game. There have been other really, really good ones. Honorable mentions, the original Zelda. I really enjoyed that one. Wind Waker is fantastic, minus some of the really tedious sailing, which I guess they fixed in the remake. I'm not...
In the HD remake, they did, yeah.
They did. I haven't played the remake, admittedly. And it's funny. Breath of the Wild did nothing for me. Tears of the Kingdom,
Agree.
Incredible. I have no idea why the silly little fuse mechanic did it for me, but it did. And it worked. But I think in Link to the Past, they got rid of a lot of the tedium that some of the other Zelda games had. And everything seemed to be very intentional. And the world was sprawling, yet compact enough to not feel like you were wasting time traveling. And just a lot of really cool, quintessential Zelda tools. I don't know. It's a very iconic piece. Plus, I played it with my cousins growing up, and so there's a nostalgic aspect to that.
I also think it feels pretty sprawling too, because it's like you kind of feel like you accomplish a lot, and then you hit the dark world.
Sure.
And then it's like there's this whole other world. I mean, it's huge. It's
funny. I never really made this comparison, and I know I'm kind of jumping into a whole other topic, but there's a game that I'm currently playing right now, Lords of the Fallen, the new 2023 version, where it does something similar, where it overlays the world of the living with the world of the dead, and you can go back and forth between them, and thus it takes one map and essentially doubles it.
Yeah.
And Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past was probably one of, if not the first, to utilize that concept. It's actually kind of a cool little comparison. Sorry.
That I can think of off the top of my head, yeah.
That's a really cool way of doing it. The original Super Mario Brothers. And I am talking about the very first one for the NES, 8 worlds. That game, when people talk about tough games nowadays,
yeah.
And I think there's definitely discussion to be had on difficulty versus challenge, artificial difficulty selections. But the original Mario game is an extremely challenging game.
Yeah.
Even with infinite continues, you are still just at the mercy of that game in the later stages with the precision jumps that you had to do. And I played that game so much so that I could beat it in... I always, in my head, I want to say I beat it in 9 minutes. I think 11 minutes is probably my best time, which is obviously, more than double what the world record currently is. But that was always a huge badge of honor for me.
Sure.
As a kid, because I knew that was hard.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's where my love for challenging games began, but that game also did the same thing that Dark Souls did. It punished you for death, but it also taught you with each death. What did you do wrong? Did you jump too late? Did you jump too soon? And that mentality has really, really stuck with me throughout my quote unquote gaming life or gaming career, that stop every time you die or something happens and pause and think about what you can do differently. And obviously there's, plenty of analogies we can make to the real life, but we're going to stick to games for now. What else? A really recent one, Liza P. Liza P.
Wow.
I know. I just played it this past summer, and I said in a tweet where I kind of summarized my feelings, I do believe that game has found its way into my top 5 games of all time list. It's not perfect. but it came out of a studio we knew nothing about. It introduced itself as saying, hey, if Bloodborne and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice had a kid together, but was also in the world of Carlo Collodi's Pinocchio, that is Lies of P. And it just worked. It was brutally challenging. It was a beautiful game to look at. I thought the story was very well told. It had some of the best NPC interactions in an action RPG that I have ever seen. Better written characters than anything that From Software has produced. Sorry, it's true. And they have teased some upcoming works that just have me incredibly excited. So I just love the creativity. They took a genre that they knew that worked, which was the Souls-like, and they put it into a very unique kind of out of left field idea, which is this, the story of Pinocchio. And I loved it. I loved every minute of that game.
I was not expecting a very recent
A very
game like
recent, right? Yeah. And I think that's 4. I need a 5th.
If you don't have one, I'm not forcing you.
I'm going to leave it at there, because I think if I drag a 5th into it, it's me just kind of pulling a rabbit out of a hat. And I think I'm happy with those 4. That kind of tells you a little bit about me, I think.
I think so. I think you gave good reasons why all those are your favorite. And I think everyone can see the connecting thread. It wasn't very well concealed. But yeah. I'm not shocked by that list for you, I'll say, having known you a long time.
Fair. Yeah, that's fair.
Now, I was a little, not nervous, but I was like, when you're like, oh, I need to come up with a top 5. It's like, I've played games for like 30 years, right? Like, what are my top 5? It's going to be impossible. So like sat down, I was like, I'm just going to write out a big list, and then I'll look it over and be like, okay, those are mine, right? I started writing, I got 5 in the list, and I was like, oh, wait, these are them. For the most part, they're them. And I will say that I think there's some recency bias on this, and not that these games are particularly recent, but I think there are a lot of games that I love that didn't make the list just because these were kind of the most present in my mind. And again, these are not in any particular order.
Sure.
But as of no surprise to you, I think Smash Ultimate is up there. I don't think there's a bigger love letter to gaming, if you ask me. But Smash as an entire series, I mean, it's easy to say Ultimate because it just has everyone, right? And it's super content rich. But before Ultimate, like, it's so difficult to choose a favorite Smash because, I mean, they all have great memories attached to them for me. But I don't normally like competitive games, but Smash to me was always like a party thing. Like, I could always play with anybody, like any group I was ever with, like Smash was an option at any stage in my life. When the first one came out, I was in elementary school. I remember that my like cousins were babysitting me, and their parents went out of town, and they threw a party that their parents didn't know they were having. They were in high school, and then they were like, if you don't tell anybody, you can play Super Smash Bros. With us. So I was like, duh, I won't tell anybody I want to play Super Smash Brothers. And I remember me and my brother in elementary school just like trouncing these high schoolers in Super Smash Brothers on the N64. And like, middle school, I was playing constantly in Melee. And then like high school, I was playing the Wii version. And then that even extended into college. And I was like so stoked because I was like the best one in my dorm. It's like anytime we played, people would always gang up on me, and I was like, it felt really good. And then like when 4 came out, then I was like, oh man, like maybe I'll get a little bit more serious about this. So I used to play with my friends that like went to tournaments, and then I got smoked and realized how bad I actually was at Smash. And like Ultimate comes out, and then like, now I'm an adult, I'm married, I have a life. I can enjoy these characters. I can play online with people I used to play with, but now I can just like be casual about it and have a fun time. But Smash is just like a consistent thread throughout my life,
I like that you have that connection going back that. And when was the first one released?
1997. No, even later than that. 1998.
Wow.
I want to say.
Okay.
98, 99.
I mean, 25 years is a long time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's the 25th anniversary of Smash
Wow.
next year. So, yeah.
Incredible.
But
now, I will say he keeps throwing out the word casual, and I'm sure to him he is. But we went and actually visited Stone, and were you Sephiroth? And then three
Yeah.
of us were Isabel from Animal Crossing?
Yeah, Isabel, I think one of you was Little Mac because I recommended, like, that's the easiest to beat up on people.
Let's just say 3v1. I don't know that we ever got a KO on you.
Right. I thought it was funny because, like, Sephiroth is, like, the boss character, right? When you think of a boss, most people think of Sephiroth. So I was like, it's funny to be, like, the villain in this situation, right? I know I'm going to get ganged up on, so I might as well play the part. But it's fun. Like, we have those memories, and it's like, it's just that's like a nothing game to you, but that's my whole life. Love
Yes.
just, like, fun stuff. I have jokes. Like, I have, like, one-liners that exist in my head that I don't know where where they came from. And then, like, I'll say them around my brother, and he's like, "You're still saying that?" We used to say that when we played, like, Melee when we were in, like, middle school. I was like, "Oh my god, that's where that's from." But it's just like, I don't know, it's just so fun. I remember even just loving the series so much, I would just be alone, just like taking pictures, like posing the characters in different ways and taking pictures in the game, like making a slideshow story. But it's just, I don't know, it's just a constant connecting thread in my life. And it's so not the type of game I would normally play otherwise.
I just love that you have that actual personal connection. My games, I had some valid reasons why they were in my top list, but none of those games hold a personal, sentimental connection to me like Smash does for you.
Right.
I'm a bit jealous of that.
Yeah, and the other cool thing about Smash is, like, even if you're not ultra competitive or anything, I think Ultimate was, like, a really cool coming together of the community, because it's like, obviously it was this case in Wii U, but like, and there was a lot of speculation around the Wii version because it took like 8 years to come out. It took forever, and the internet was like kind of blossoming as far as like forums and stuff. But I really liked the Smash Ultimate stuff because, like, I got to be a part of like a community that was all like talking about and speculating about this like fun experience that everybody shared. And it's like, I'm not competitive, I'm not constantly playing online, I'm not doing ranked, but all the people that are also in this like global conversation with me. It's like a cool thing. Like, I could talk to anybody from any country and be like, who your top 5 for Smash, you know? It's fun. It was an incredibly fun thing.
That's awesome.
It's great memories. You know, I remember like being near tears when they announced some characters too, just because like these are connecting threads for so long throughout my life, and it's like cool moments of my life showcased in the personalities of these like fun original characters. It's cool. It's a cool thing.
I love that.
I have no other top 5. Oh, no, just kidding.
That was my top 5. Smash.
Yeah, my top 5 was Smash 64, Smash Melee, Smash Brawl, Smash 4, and then Smash
No, because if I don't hear Digimon game, I know this list is rigged.
I have to be honest with you.
No.
There is no Digimon game. Now, if we're talking about like top 5 anything, it's Digimon. But
folks, what you need to understand is this very well could have been an all Digimon podcast, even though
Right.
I don't know anything about it, and we still could have made it work.
I was like, this is the first episode we're going to put out. Absolutely under no circumstances am I going to mention Digimon. And now I will spoil that we have talked about Digimon in every episode so far. So if you're interested in an obscure monster collecting anime from 1999,
It's coming. It's coming.
yeah. And if you're not, then I have bad news for you.
Anyway,
Okay, moving on. My next one is a bit of an indie title, but also is a recency thing, Stardew Valley. I have over 500 hours. This is like a fun thing that I've shared with my wife. I have close friends that I play regularly with. It's incredibly relaxing. It's super content rich, deceptively so. And it's fun to constantly go back and try something new. Like, I'm always putting mods and stuff on it. But I love Stardew. It's just like such a fun, relaxing atmosphere, and it's so easy to just slip into it for hours. Just turn your brain off, you know?
and you've been doing a lot of co-op lately, I know. And it is genuine co-op now, right? Because I know that there was a co-op mod for a while.
Yeah, when it first came out there, so I got into it actually super, super early, almost as soon as it went up on the Steam Greenlight. I used to like kind of watch Steam Greenlight like a hawk for a while, like when it was first coming out.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and I was actually looking at Steam Greenlight with a friend of mine, and both of us had grown up loving Harvest Moon. So when this came out, it was like advertised. It was like a co-op Harvest Moon, and we were in. We followed it as closely as we could since the first like Steam Greenlight trailer. And when it finally came out, we were like bummed there was no co-op, but we were playing like single player, just like talking about our experiences in it constantly. And then when the official multiplayer came out, that's when things went nuts for me, you know. But I love. Sorry,
I was just gonna ask, and just in related, because I know that there was something recent. I think a couple more clips that he showed. Haunted Chocolatier, same level of excitement.
I am, because I love the atmosphere of Stardew Valley, and one of the biggest parts of that atmosphere are the music that he creates. Eric Barone is the creator of it. And the Haunted Chocolatier music so far that he's shown off has been second to none. But I am kind of less excited because it seems to be single player focused. That said, he has kind of taken a break to refresh himself and is creating a new free update for Stardew Valley.
Ah, all right.
So new Stardew Valley content is coming, and for me, even a little bit of content is like at least another 100 hours. In fact, I always play multiplayer now. I rarely ever play alone. And I started doing... Do you know what multi-world is?
Sure don't.
There's this website called archipelago.gg. And what it is you can take a list of like approved games that all have randomizers in it. And those randomizers can then be shuffled into other people's randomized games. So you can get together with a group of friends. You can all choose a game. Like you can be in Dark Souls 3 is one of them.
Wow.
I'll be in Stardew. We can have a buddy in Pokemon. We can have a buddy in like Donkey Kong Country 3. And like the four of us will go in, choose our settings, and then we'll throw in our setup files. It'll randomize all of our items into each other's games, and then you go wild.
What?
You have like a little server set up, and your items get mixed into other people's. So I have a group of about 6 friends, and we'll start one up and just be like, this is going to go for like 3 weeks, right? We like fire it up, play some longer games, and I'll always hop into Stardew Valley, and I'm the first one done. Like playing randomizers, like optimizing Stardew Valley in a way that it was never meant to be. But I never like get into like speed runny stuff. But for some reason, Stardew, it's just like, I don't know, when you plan it all out and then that whole plan comes to fruition and it feels good, but also it's like Stardew's kind of low pressure with the exception of like a clock. I don't know. It's good. I like it.
All right. Well, there you go. Archipelago.gg. I just pulled it up, and sure enough, there is a list of completely unrelated games.
And they are all super fun to play.
Wow.
I would strongly recommend it.
All right. So I just threw us way down a rabbit hole.
Sure.
So we've got Smash.
Right.
Got Stardew Valley.
Stardew.
And Cube World, I think, is the next one on your list.
Yeah. So Cube World is actually my next 3. One for every year. It's
in between
re-released.
Wale's updates.
Yeah. No, the next one, so I don't even have an individual game written. It's just like a series I really love. But if I have to choose one title in it, it's Halo. And I would have to say that it's Halo Reach is probably... And that is strictly narratively, but there's like excellent aspects of every Halo game except for 5. But I like, this is another thing where it's like, you were late in the Xbox 360 era, you said, but if you were in high school in 2007 in America and Halo 3 dropped, that's what you were doing all the time, every time. When you were going to class, people were talking about Halo, you know? And then Call of Duty Modern Warfare came out, and then people were split a little bit, but everyone always ended up back at Halo. Like, it was a constant throughout my life as well. And I don't normally get competitive, but I love being part of a team. So it's like I could squad up with any one of my friends. We could have a great time. It could be super sweaty if we wanted to. It could be like nice and relaxing. And then it like brought in Reach specifically, I really like because it brought in a lot of custom maps and game modes and everything. And then we weren't playing like ultra competitive stuff anymore. We're playing stuff like Griffball, which is like kind of soccer in the Halo universe, more or less. But yeah, I love Halo. I'm one of the few people that stuck with Halo Infinite while it had its terrible launch. I complained through the whole thing and I hated it, but I still was playing it nonstop. And they just released PvE content, and I'm so excited to be like going back to it. But yeah, you could see a big connecting thread with my favorite game is kind of the life around the game.
Yeah. No, but again, I love that connection, that personal connection.
But I also just absolutely adore the lore of Halo. I think it's a really well-constructed, well-told story that is like, for the most part, generic sci-fi, but with an interesting enough spin on its different factions that it becomes very engaging. And in fact, I am reading through all of the Halo novels right now. I have about 8 finished, but I think there's 35 of them right now.
And this past year, we did get the live action, which you
hated with every fiber of
got it. Okay, just checking.
Sure. Just so we're on the same page. I watched all of it, but I will tell you that I hated it absolutely, unequivocally. Very little good I can say about it.
It seems to be a fairly common thread amongst Halo fans that didn't quite hit the mark like Last of Us did.
Yeah. And it's sad. And then they're like, don't worry, we have a new showrunner for season 2. And then it's like, okay, great. What are they involved in? And the projects they are involved in do not instill me with a lot of confidence. But knowing that people dislike the first season so much, maybe just diverting from it enough will make it good. That may be a conversation we have in a few months from now. But I'm here to talk about the things I like, not the things I absolutely despise. And yeah, moving on to the next one. This is kind of indicative of a huge type, like aspect of games that I love. I think it's represented best in this particular title, Persona 5 Royal. What I always love is like a good bro storyline. Like having a cast of tight-knit characters where you have a social aspect with them. Like Mass Effect, you have character stories you go down, and like the way you interact with them can influence the story. I think Persona 5 was like the pinnacle of that. Granted, I love Persona 3 and 4 as well. And then Royal was like a nice twist on it that added even more content. So I think that's just like the indicative one. But even games where like there's not even that hardcore social aspect, just like normal bro-y games like Final Fantasy 15, I love as well. I kind of like a cast of characters that feels like I said earlier, I love playing as a team, but if I had to play alone, I still want to be part of a team. You know what I mean?
So yeah. A single player game still has to pitch you amongst a group of comrades.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like, honestly, I would play an Avengers game where all I did was like recruit the different Avengers. You know? I would be just as happy with that as one where I could play as any Avenger.
You'd be the guy with the clipboard going door to door.
Right.
Saying, excuse me.
Okay, so what are your superpowers? Like, what are your likes and dislikes?
Pardon
Can
me,
you
Black
accept
Widow.
this present so I can get this side quest?
That is interesting. That is. I know you've talked to me about Persona many, many times. I don't know that I've ever heard you quite describe the reason you like it like that before.
Yeah. Also, I think it's a phenomenal story, Persona 5. Of the all of the Persona games, but specifically like the 3D era of Persona, which is typically like when modern Persona fans talk about it, that's what they mean, like 3, 4, 5. I think 3 has the best story, and I really like that cast of characters, but 5 is just the quality of life done to perfection, a beautiful art style, really engaging story. And like the story is like, you have this group of people coming together that are like fun to explore their dynamic and how that dynamic evolves. But like the greater story itself is kind of like almost like a country coming together too. So it's like what you're building on a micro level, you're also building on a macro level, which I think is really good writing.
That might end up being on one of our lists because I've never dabbled in a Persona, but you've piqued my interest.
Here's the thing with the Persona. Okay, but we'll get into it. I have not put Persona on a list, but the remake of 3 maybe. But the thing with Persona 5, even though it's one of my favorite games and I've replayed it like 100 times, the beginning is rough. If you're not an anime fan, if you're not an RPG fan, asking somebody to sink 3 or 4 hours into it before it really picks up and opens up all the mechanics is a rough way to try to sell them. But obviously, I will recommend it to no end.
Sure.
But along those lines, it leads me to this next one, which is a lot of the same aspects. It's XCOM 2. Now,
okay.
I believe that XCOM 2 is best experienced with mods, but that's only because the foundation it's built on is so good, and the mods only like enhance what is already great about it. But just like I love like the interpersonal relationships, I also love being able to control the environment in which all that takes place. So XCOM 2 lets you build up a base, like you're customizing every room in that base for different stat effects and everything. You can literally customize, rename, change the origin of every single soldier you have. So I always play with a huge list of people that I know, which kind of like helps increase the experience. Like you're always on my team, and for some reason you always end up as one of my healers. So like, but I'm like, I can't let Blue die, you know? So it's like I have an extra investment because you're like named after a real person, you know? But it's like, it's fun to build up that army, and I kind of like, I like that power creep. I don't really play it for a lot of the hardcore challenge, and it does get difficult. I usually like to play on a little bit easier modes and just kind of relax and you know, enjoy making my units as powerful as possible without too much in my way. But I also have gone through and played on the harder difficulties with the Iron Man mode enabled, which will prevent you from save scumming by every single move you make is permanent, and it deletes the auto save before it, so you can never revert. Oof. So it offers a challenge if you want it, but really what I like about it is like the micro organization of like leading a group of what feels to me, because of the way I play it, like tight-knit individuals coming together. So that's my spiel.
No. Wow. Yours also have that common thread.
Right? Yeah.
I like that. Wow. I never thought just asking someone about, you know, their favorite top 5 anything could actually reveal so much, but here we are.
I will say, if I had to put myself in a box, I am always playing the healer. Like if we do anything, I just want to play the healer. I'm here for the team. I'll be the supporting character in anyone's main story. I just like want to be in the squad and bring everyone up. You know,
I that's funny that you say that, because that's something we have very much in common. I will never strive to be the highest damage dealing. I will never strive to be the one to get the last hit. I want to be the one that revived the guy who got the last hit.
Right.
That works for me. I want to be the one who helped.
You even ended up being support in Monster Hunter, where that really doesn't super exist.
Yeah. Monster Hunter Rise, especially. My hunting horn character, I would not really help you take down the monster, but tell you what, you weren't going down on my watch. You were being healed and you were being buffed left, right, and center.
Right.
I got you covered. I want to. What's the office line that Michael entertained the guy who entertained 1,000?
Oh, yeah, yeah. When Dwight gives his Mussolini speech, yeah,
that's what I want to be. I want to be the guy who helps the guy who saves the day.
Yeah, that's all very much how I feel. Yeah.
I did actually in our talks, because I casually mentioned it, I do have something else to round out my top 5, and it doesn't feel fake or shoehorned, and it is The Last of Us.
Fake.
Just kidding. Got me. The Last of Us, the first game, I don't think I've ever experienced a more genuine cast of characters in a game ever. I was so honestly moved by the story and by the relationship between Joel and Ellie, and I've never done this before this game. I've never done it since. But when the credits rolled, I sat there in complete stunned silence. And if you've played Last of Us and you've experienced that ending, you know that guttural feeling that you experience at the end. And I sat there in silence. And as soon as the credits rolled and I got back to the main menu, I hit start new game again. I've never done that before. I needed to go through that story immediately to get back to my characters. And it got a lot of people talking, and I definitely think in terms of storytelling, now gameplay in Last of Us, let's be honest, it's nothing game breaking. They didn't do anything in that game that hadn't been done dozens and dozens of times before.
Scavenging was kind of new, like those bricks laying around.
Was it? Maybe that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that might be a fair thing to throw out there. And then and the feeling of not hopelessness, but the feeling of it really changes the game if you can happen to find one of those items. But the gameplay, it was pretty basic, third person cover shooter. They really streamlined a lot of the gameplay in the second one, but just that story and that relationship and the quote unquote hero not necessarily being the real hero you want him to be at the end of it all. And then the game just ends. And it's okay with you wondering, why did he make these choices? Why did he make these decisions? And it sparked all kinds of conversation, definitely with me and people that I knew that had played it. And that's up there as well, for sure.
I have heard this speech before because on our last iteration of Forgot to Save, we ended up playing The Last of Us because of your recommendation, and I really loved it.
That's right.
I had to play on the easiest mode because I am a phenomenal coward.
And it's funny that you talk about difficulty settings because maybe segue time. In the little quiz you had me take to determine my gamer profile, one of the questions asked about what difficulty level you typically play on, or if playing on the hardest difficulty was an important thing for you.
Yes, we'll talk about our gamer motivation profile just super, super quick. Another thing I want to say, top 3 favorite genres, just really quick. Go. Okay.
Souls-like, Metroidvania, and 2D platformer.
Nice. Cool. RPG, tactics, simulation.
Ooh, wow, very different.
Yeah. It's so funny. I think we've nailed each other. I could have made your list. You could have made mine.
I could have gotten some of yours for sure.
Yeah.
Tactics scare me.
Yes, but, right? Now we're in a much more engaging and friendly and approachable tactics games. Now they're making wholesome games. I'm putting in quotes, tactics games.
What's a wholesome tactic game?
Fae Tactics, I think, just came out. Yeah, there are games that range in super intense challenge. And, I grew up, honestly, one of these games on my list could have been Fire Emblem for Game Boy Advance. I loved that game, but there was permadeath. If your character died, that was it. It was out for good. But now if you boot up a Fire Emblem game, it gives you the option. Do you want to play classic mode where there's permadeath, or do you want to just do a casual mode where you die, whatever, they'll be back next mission?
See, and herein lies my problem. And this is going to steal some thunder from the gamer profile. But
go for it.
Here's a little something about me. I'm someone who is always going to argue, and you can come at me in the comments, that's fine, we'll have that discussion. I will always argue that having accessibility options to include difficulty options never, and I mean never, hurt a game. They only ever can accentuate and make a game better and open for more players.
I agree wholeheartedly, but caveat. I understand that some games are created with the intention of experiencing it a certain way, such as the early Resident Evil games, that is necessary to get the entire experience that the creators had intended when it was created. That said, I fully support every single game nowadays releasing with difficulty options, with accessibility options, because it's just not gaming's just not the same anymore. That sounds like boomer, but I'm saying it in a positive
No,
way.
I think you have a good point. And to kind of clarify my point, I'm not arguing that every game needs to have those options. I still think, From Software, Miyazaki has a vision, and that vision is part of the story, the world, the collective lore building that he has, is that it is a very dangerous, deadly world that he wants you to explore.
Sure.
And so creating difficulty options would lessen that impact. And I'm okay with that creative vision. But my stance is it wouldn't hurt the game itself to simply put in a God mode, for example, for someone who, maybe has slower reflex, they want to play on, or just, a gamer who has children and they have limited time and they want to experience the world and the story without the challenge. I think it's okay that not every game has them, but I don't think it ever hurts a game to include them.
My stance, even if I can take it a step further, is this. I am even oftentimes against patching out exploits in single-player games.
Oh, absolutely.
If it doesn't break the game and there is no component where I can impact another player's experience, unless it's like, you're falling through seams in the world, if there is some kind of exploit or something, if I want to take advantage of that in the game, I am fully in support of keep your hands off of it. This is my experience now. You released it, it's out of your hands, it's in mine now.
Do not rebalance something that feels overpowered and broken when I'm not impacting someone else. 100%.
And they say a tenet of game design is that your players will always optimize the fun out of the game. But even so, when I'm the player, I don't want to be told how to play a single player experience. Now, if we're talking about, I understand in FromSoft games, you can influence other players' experience. So, obviously be stern with that.
But let's take it a step further. I'm glad we're having this conversation because what they did with Elden Ring and what they're now doing with the new Lords of the Fallen is, and I can't believe it took them this long to figure out how to do it, but they are now separating their PvE and their PvP patches. So
awesome.
Right? So they can say, this particular weapon is way too powerful against another player. We're going to nerf the damage output by 30%, or we're going to increase the stamina usage by 15%. But we're leaving the PvE usage exactly the same.
Good. Yeah.
Be overpowered.
It's crazy
in the world.
that took that long.
Right. So huge fan of that. So anyway, the whole topic of difficulty levels and talking about your tactics love is that I have this weird need, and something in my own psychology. If I see a difficulty option, I feel compelled to play it on the highest difficulty, and I don't think it's an ego thing. I don't think it's a pride thing. I don't think it's anything other than I want to push myself, and so I will automatically slide that up to the highest. I remember the first game that I know I did that in was the original Modern Warfare. And I did it because I saw the achievement list, and I saw to get all the achievements you needed. What was that final secret level where you had to rescue a hostage from a plane, and you had to do it, I think, in under 60 seconds on the highest difficulty?
Oh, I don't remember.
It was something along those lines, and I wanted that achievement. So I played through the whole game on the highest difficulty. It was tough as nails. I finally got the achievement, and ever since then, I want to experience it on the highest challenge. When it comes to tactics games, I tried XCOM 2, and I immediately checked every box and put up every slider that made it as hard as I could.
So that's a hard decision.
Trying to learn at the highest difficulty on Iron Man mode is not the way to learn a game.
Yeah, no. I am kind of in the opposite mindset. I think that a game needs to earn me playing in the highest difficulty. It is an investment of my time. I would like to experience the story, but I love Halo to death, so I will go back and make sure I beat them all on Legendary, especially because you get a special ending if you beat it on Legendary. But then I'll try to even go further, and I'll do the challenge runs. In Halo, it's called Lasso, which means Legendary all skulls on. Skulls are the modifying little components to the difficulty. And I'll go back and do that because those are games I've loved. I've played for hours. They are worthy of me investing the time I'm going to spend pulling out my hair to revisit them at the highest level. So yeah, XCOM, I would have never done it a harder difficulty, but after like beating it 3 or 4 times and still loving it, I was like, I think this game has earned me going back and doing something more difficult. Persona, that's another one. I played through it like 4 or 5 times, so it's like, okay, I'll play on the hard difficulty.
I really need to adopt that mindset. I picked up Doom Eternal for really cheap one day. I've never played Doom before, but I did the same thing. I cranked up all the difficulty sliders, and they even have, I think on the highest difficulty, it's also permadeath. And my first run was 43 minutes, which I was impressed. But my total playtime for Doom Eternal is 43 minutes now.
Right, yeah.
I haven't come back to it.
That's a nutso first move.
So I guess we've actually hit an hour just talking, but should we go over our profiles for just a hot minute?
Yeah. So
They're not going anywhere. I mean, the people listening, they're stuck.
Sure. We are now going to hey, I want to talk about something else. Bring it back. We thought it might be fun to go over to really get a complete picture of who we are, not only our favorite games and genres, but really this very cool little quiz called a gamer motivation profile. I will put a link in the description to where you can find and take it for yourself. But it's an organization called Quantic Foundry, who I have not done much research on them specifically, but I was familiar with this gamer motivation profile. And what it does is you take a brief survey and it tells you what aspects of video games that you most enjoy or identify with and quantifies them in a little easy to read chart that will also tell you like what games are most indicative of that particular aspect. So you kind of get a feel for, yourself as like a larger kind of, I don't know, not larger, sorry. You get a feel for the way that you play games broken down into their most basic components so that like, I was saying earlier that my favorite things are like building a team and being a part of a team. Well, obviously my profile reflects that, but if that's something I wasn't aware of before, it's kind of cool to see it in writing in front of you. Yeah. So Blue.
I just took it. I just took it tonight, right before we actually hit record. And it's got some interesting things to say.
It's maybe 20, 25 questions.
Yeah, not very long. It took me all of, I think, less than 10 minutes to answer it. But looking over its results, and hopefully we'll have kind of some imagery up on the screen for you to see what we got. But I'll say right now, so my gamer type is an acrobat/slayer, and I'm just going to read it verbatim what it says about those two. Most of it I agree with. There's like one little caveat that we'll touch on. But as an acrobat is a solo gamer who primarily wants to take on challenging gameplay, and they want to practice over and over until they can take on the most difficult missions and bosses in the game. That is 100% me. There's no question in my mind. I do typically play solo. I do typically play offline, and I will practice over and over so I can be proficient at these challenges. For a Slayer, it says it wants to be the heroic protagonist in a cinematic story. Now, this is the only part that I kind of have one little debate with, and that is what we were just talking about a little bit ago. If given the choice, I will actually be a support player. I would be a healer. I want to be a medic. I want to be someone buffing you while you take on the challenges, if that's an option. But solo gamers who enjoy highly curated narratives and slower paced gameplay, they see games as highly interactive action movies to be experienced. Not always, but I do enjoy an action movie where I get to play the part throughout the game.
I saw this and was completely unsurprised by your results. But what I will say is I think that this first sentence is maybe just phrased poorly. this Slayers want to be a heroic protagonist in a cinematic story. I don't think that means you as a person in a group. I think it just means like Kratos, like a strong character. I think that is like the main character of an action movie they mean.
Okay, I can get on board with that. So what were your two? What was your gamer type?
So, yeah, and we'll break down your little chart in a little bit. But, yeah, mine, luckily we did not get the same thing. I see that as a nice juxtaposition. But mine is the Gardener/Bard.
The
Gardeners. Yeah, I'm a huge Nicki Minaj fan. Gardeners are looking for a quiet, relaxing task completion. They are... sorry, I'm going to take that again. Gardeners are looking for quiet, relaxing task completion. They enjoy accessible gameplay that focuses on completing levels/quests, collecting stars/trophies, and collecting collectibles. I feel like we could have really narrowed that sentence down a little bit. But yeah, I am a generation that was duped by the Pokemon craze, that you have to collect every aspect of everything, Pokemon Bionicles throughout my whole life. So obviously that has stained my brain for the duration of my existence, and it seeps into my gaming habits as well. But specifically, bards are team players who want to chat and interact with other players in game worlds that are rich with lore, stories, discovery, and customization. For them, the game is a grand story that emerges from a community of players, and I think I have reiterated that so many times in this episode already. Even when those players aren't other players, but, little digital bros, that's great with me too. That
sounds like you.
So once you complete the gaming motivational profile, you'll also get a little chart that charts in percentages what specific aspects of games you like. And there are kind of 3 or 4 adjectives that will describe it. So, Blue, do you want to say what your little adjectives here on your profile are and what your most engaging points of a game are? Your highest 3% maybe?
Yeah, so it labels me as relaxed, gregarious, and inquisitive. Mm-hmm. Which, all right. But looking at my scores, my top 3 are Mastery at 64%, Immersion at 54%, and Action at 46%. Mm-hmm. So looking at the Mastery component, 64%, and they break it down into a couple of subcategories, and they have me at a challenge level, and I don't know exactly how they're calculating these percentages, but my challenge percentage is at 95%.
Yeah.
People who enjoy playing games that rely heavily on skill and ability. They take the time to practice and hone their gameplay. These gamers play at the highest difficulty settings and don't mind failing missions repeatedly in games like Dark Souls because they know it's the only way they'll master the game. I didn't write this. This was written for me.
Yeah.
That's actually hilarious. I didn't read that one until just now. That's really funny.
Yeah, and it's like, this is like alarmingly so. They're like, maybe you should get help. Right? The bar is like almost completely filled. The only reason that the mastery category is so high is just because of your score in the challenge.
Wow.
Your other one is like strategy. It's like so low that it's not even worth mentioning.
My strategy is 12%.
Yeah. Compared to your challenges,
which
95.
I feel like I'm strategic, but I guess not when it comes to just brute forcing my way through obstacles.
Sure. And then let's take a look at the opposite side, right? So mine says it's calm, spontaneous, completionist, and gregarious. I want to be with
gregarious together.
Yeah, which is ironically what gregarious is, And my top 3 are achievement, creativity, and immersion. Achievement has 83% in that category.
Wow.
And that is carried almost exactly like yours by completion, which I have a 98%. 98% in.
Wow.
Yeah. So gamers with high completion scores want to finish everything the game has to offer, then try to complete every mission, find every collectible, discover every hidden location. For some players, this means completing every listed achievement or unlocking every possible character/movie in the game. For gamers who score high on design, this means collecting costumes and mounts in games like World of Warcraft. I do not like World of Warcraft, but I understand the draw. I am thinking about it just in reading that. How many times do I message you? Like, yo, I just 100% this game.
Yes.
I don't even say I beat this game. When I finish a game is when I 100% it.
It's funny because since we've known each other, I think I've only told you about one game that I've gotten 100% in. And
Sure.
it was like a month ago, Mario Wonder.
Which is still a huge achievement. But yeah, I like thinking back to it now. I'll be like, I got the Digimon Survive. I had to play every ending, experience everything. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I got 100%. Like Pikmin 4 came out. I beat the game. I text you when I beat it. And then like a few hours later, hey, I 100% it. Like I don't know. I love it. Like, again, if a game is good enough that it would earn me continuing to play it, I feel like it deserves me exploring every single thing.
Yeah.
It's like a game I love, I really love. But that's it. That's us in a nutshell. So if you were listening to future episodes and you're like, yeah, Stone doesn't like this, but I'm not really that type of gamer. Now you know why. Now you know where each of us come from, what we like mechanically, like really drilled down into what makes us tick.
Yeah. This was kind of eye-opening, even just for me, for myself.
Right. When you read it, you're like, oh, duh, this is obvious.
Yeah.
But until you get it in writing, it's like, I don't know. It's hard to define. It seems intangible, I guess, until it's like put down on paper like this.
Now,
But yeah, I encourage everyone listening. We will link it in the description. Go ahead and take the gamer motivation profile. Let us know maybe what your top 3 categories are or what your gamer type is. Like, for example, to reiterate, Blues was acrobats / slayers, and mine was gardeners and bards. So
yeah. Are you a masochist like me, or do you want to tend to a garden? Which, honestly, I want to switch. I don't know how to. I want to. So I loved Harvest Moon back in the day.
right.
And now I just can't seem to get into those. Like I want to boot up something like Farmville and just pick blueberries all day. But no, instead I'm beating my head against every wall that From Software throws at me, and wondering why I can't sleep at night.
It sounds like maybe you and I need to head to archipelago.gg. You hop into Stardew. Maybe you just need it to be as challenging as possible to truly relax.
Sounds like an interesting episode coming up. It does.
Sure, I love it. I love multi-world. It's super fun. But Blue, do you feel like you've given a complete picture of yourself?
I think I've given enough so that you know who I am, you know what I'm about when it comes to games. And so, like you said, when I start giving my opinion on some of these games we play, hopefully you can harken back to this and say, I get it. But you know what? Based on the fact that Blue hates it, I'll probably love it.
Right. And we will somehow, I know that we're going to talk about this in a subsequent episode somewhere.
Oh yeah.
But we will talk about why we trust each other's recommendations, and a huge component of that is just knowing what makes each other tick and what we like about games and really all kinds of media. And I think that this is just putting it to paper, like what we already knew.
Yes. But more to come very soon.
Yeah. To reiterate one final time, and that's not true because we'll reiterate at the start of every single episode, but week 1 is going to be Blue presenting a list of games that I will then choose from. Week 2 will be me presenting a list of games that Blue will choose from. Then week 3 will be us playing Blue's game. Week 4 will be us playing my game, and then it'll start over again the following month.
And if you have any suggestions for games that we really should have on these lists, or if you have any suggestions for themes or topics that you want us to discuss, please let us know. We are happy to ignore you.
No, in all seriousness, we definitely want to integrate the games you guys want us to experience into this list that we present each other as well. I don't want it to just be us throwing them at each other. Granted, I could do that, but I think it's more fun to get, again, a community involved and like us all experiencing something together. And part of that is you guys having a voice in what we might play in the future. So under any episode, at any time, feel free to suggest games that you might like to see us play. And I would say to keep in mind a criteria of it influencing the greater video game landscape, or kind of seeing it as a building block for some specific mechanic or genre that will be built on later at some point in the future in video games, in the industry as a whole. So, that makes sense?
It does.
Okay.
It does. On that note, I think we are ready to call episode 0 a wrap. Stone, it's been a blast.
Always.
Thanks for pushing me to do this. I'm going to be honest right now, guys. It's 1 a.m. I'm ready to turn in. I was ready to say, hey, let's just wait for another day to do it, because we had a lot going on tonight. Anyway, I'm glad we did it. This really was a lot of fun. It was eye-opening, and I am looking forward to really getting this thing off the ground.
Yeah. You guys, to clickbait, you guys won't believe what happens next.
You might. You might. It's pretty straightforward. We've said what's going to happen next pretty clearly.
Keep an eye out. Monday mornings, new episodes. Forgot to save. We hope to see you there. We hope to see you in the comments, suggesting new games, playing them alongside us. Love to hear your opinions. Thanks for listening. Have a good one, everyone.
Thank you so much for coming out. We will talk to you soon.